Now, this is a real pizza. Rough bits, doesn't look like Pizza Hut, doesn't look like anything else. This is homemade real pizza. So, let's have a look. Let's start with the sauce. You should always cook this way in advance so that it has a chance to cool down. So, olive oil, chilli, garlic, tinned tomatoes, and herbs, fresh if you've got them, but from the cupboard's fine, some salt and some pepper. So these are pretty ordinary things that you should be able to get hold of. So, quick recap then. For a basic sauce for 4 people, I would go for 2 big glugs of olive oil, a couple of chopped chilies, 3 garlic cloves, some dried herbs, tin of tomatoes, and 2 pinches of salt and some pepper. And making a sauce, really simple. So let's get the heat going, put the oil in, and if you like it hotter, put more chili in. You know, it's completely up to you. So the pan's starting to bubble away, and I put the garlic in, get that going first, and I'm going to speed this bit up in a moment because it can take a while. You don't want to burn the garlic, just have it nicely cooked through. Okay, then add the chili. I like a bit of a kick in the tomato sauce. If you don't, just leave the chili out. When you feel that's cooked through, a couple of pinches of salt. Again, it takes a few times to do this, to find your own flavour. I was chatting to an Italian friend of mine, and he said he doesn't cook the sauce at all. Just chops up tomatoes and puts them straight on the pizza base. So this is completely different to that, but this is just how I like to do them. So you can leave that to cool. I'd give it at least 2 hours. You need about an hour and a half at least, maybe even longer, to prepare the dough. So I've got a mixture of plain flour and semolina, and I've put some salt in. And I've already made up some yeast with water, sugar and dried yeast. And now I'm going to make the dough. I'm using a board underneath. I just find it a lot easier because I can move the board around. It keeps the flour off the worktop. So make a hole in the middle and just start pouring in your yeast mixture. And get your hands busy. Start making it into the dough. That's it. Put all of the yeast mixture in. Then I add more water, so I'll give you the amounts later on. But just keep working the dough. Notice I've also got a scraper there, which is really handy. I've got flour for dusting, and then start kneading the dough. If your fingers get covered in flour, just rub them together. Put all those bits back into the dough. Doesn't do any harm at all. So keep working the dough, and really it should be at least 5 minutes of kneading. So we'll end up with a nice ball of dough. Get a big bowl or some kind of container because this is going to double in size. You can dust it on the inside or you can put oil in, doesn't really matter. I use flour to dust it, and then leave it in a bowl that's got enough space to double in size. It's also a good idea to score the flour and the dough because as it expands, if you haven't scored it, it can actually contain the expansion and stop it rising properly. So put the cuts in, just allows it to breathe and get bigger and bigger. And then just leave it somewhere warm and it will take an hour and a half probably. So, basic pizza dough recipe, 500 grams of plain flour, same as semolina. If you've not got semolina, just use plain flour. Start off with 400 mils of water, 30 grams of sugar, 21 grams of yeast, and allow that to build before you do the dough. So, hour and a half later, or when it's doubled in size, you can start to build your pizza dough. So you need to punch the air out of it that's already in there, and then knock it around a bit and do a little bit more kneading, not too much, but just to kind of wake it up a bit. And then what we're going to do is cut chunks out and make them into the pizza bases. Okay, so I'm just getting it into a nice shape again, and then I'll use my pasta scraper to actually cut it into chunks. Now, I'm doing pizzas for 4 people today. I've made too much dough, but that doesn't do me any harm at all. You can make the bases for the pizza, you can freeze them. Today I'm actually going to make bread out of the leftover dough. So I've chopped off one chunk. People sometimes weigh it, I don't bother. All the pizzas are going to come out different shapes anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But a fair chunk, and then roll it out. It won't be a perfect shape. If you want to do that, you can stretch it with your fingers. But I just make it a rough shape. The important thing is the actual thickness. I don't like big bready pizzas, I like quite thin pizzas, so I'll make it less than half a centimetre in depth. So we make up as many as we wish, and then I would leave them for a good 10 minutes, and they'll do a second prove. Okay, so on to my last pizza base now. I think I've made 6. And I've got plenty of dough left. If you do make them up as bases and freeze them, you need to let them fully defrost before you actually cook with them. So that's going to go in my oven on its own to make some bread while the pizzas are cooking. So let's prep the veg. First thing is, you need to chop your veg, or whatever it is that you're chopping to put on the pizza, as thin as possible. If you're only cooking your pizza for 60-90 seconds, then you need to get as much heat and cooking into that veg. So cut it really, really fine. I'm using onions and peppers here. Really, you can put anything you like on a pizza, you know, whatever's to your taste. But just keep it cut super fine. I find the flavour of red onions is just amazing on pizza. Fantastic. I use an Ooni oven, which is fueled by wood pellets, but I've made successful pizzas just in my ordinary oven in the kitchen. If you do it on a pizza oven, it'll probably take 60 to 90 seconds. If you do it in a normal kitchen oven, probably 10 minutes. And I think you get a much better pizza that comes out of a real pizza oven, just because the temperature is so much higher. It'll be about 450-500 degrees, and it makes a real difference. So this pizza oven is a couple of years old now, and it is a bit of a knack to actually get it lit. I can do it first time every time now, but it took me a while at the beginning. And the door at the front, when you take the door off, you can look in, you can see the flame running across the top of the oven. We'll see it in a moment when we actually start to cook a pizza, but we're all set to go. So I've got a pizza shovel here. I put some flour on the shovel just to make it easy to get the pizza off to slide it into the oven. And I make the pizza topping on the pizza on the shovel. So base is down, and then we use the tomato sauce that we created earlier. One big temptation when making pizzas is to put too much on of everything, and if you end up with a real deep pizza, when it gets cooked, what you'll find is the outside of the pizza's cooked but the inside isn't. So less is probably better as you go along. Also, completely covering the whole pizza means that you're not going to get that really nice bread flavour, because you're covering up the dough. So make it rough and ready. Have some gaps, just sling things on however they go, and you can make plenty of pizzas. If you make one you don't like it, make another one. Keep going. I've done a pizza party for about 20 people and made up 2 kilos of dough, and actually it lasted all 20 people. So I made lots of small thin pizzas with different toppings, and it was great. So my wife's making this pizza, and she's putting a lot of toppings on, maybe too much. All comes down to experimentation. The cheese that I'm using is bought in mozzarella from a supermarket. It would be nice to get the mozzarella that's in lumps that you can tear off and put on, but this is just what I had in the fridge today. So taking the pizza over to the oven. When you put the pizza in, it's a bit of a knack with the shovel. If you're not careful, you shovel all of the food in and you leave the pizza on the shovel, and it makes a real mess. So it's just practice. You have to keep turning it. Cooking time 60 to 90 seconds, and looks like this one's done now. So let's have a look. It's evenly cooked all over. You can see the flame in the oven there, and that will be lovely. You can see the cooking on the crust there, so you get the real flavour of the bread with the pizza. I also tend to use a wooden board to put the pizzas back on because they're going to be red hot. Here's another one. It looks a bit of a simpler one. Maybe just cheese and tomato sauce. That's it. You've got to keep turning it. There we go. This will be done in just a moment. This was a really hot day when we filmed it, and having a glass of wine with a nice kind of salty pizza, really nice dough, was amazing. Okay, there it is. Oh, straight onto the plate this time. There we go. Okay, one last one I think. And there's quite a bit of pizza base showing on this one, and if you look at it, can you see there's a big bubble of pizza base blowing up? That's nice, gets loads of flavour onto it. So I'd encourage weird shapes with your pizza, just makes it taste fantastic. Okay, here it goes. There we are, beautiful. So that's that last pizza there. There's another one. Beautiful dough there that you can see. Really picks up the flavour.